You're listening to the Youth Critic Podcast on KHZ Network. Find us on Facebook at DecibelUNG Radio and find us on Twitter at DecibelUNG.
I got a feeling we're not in.
If you like this episode, please leave a like and comment on our iTunes page at KHZ Network. And now for the podcast.
They're brothers. They're plumbers. They're on the trail of a kidnapped princess and a mystical meteorite.
It's incredible!
That gives anyone who possesses it the power to rule the universe.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Youth Critic Retrospective. I am your host, Cale Smith. Joining me today is
Justin Mayhew. Good afternoon, y'all.
And we are talking Super Mario Brothers, the movie. Okay, you go first.
I was struggling with how to describe this movie. I was having an interesting time coming to grips. So I'll issue you with a little aphorism here. This movie is like you go to Taco Max or Moe's or something like that, and you order the loaded nachos. And when you come back with the loaded nachos, you wind up also having several different flavors of ice cream and gummy bears on top.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. That's a good way of describing it. The way I would describe it is there was a lot of creative effort. There was a lot of shrooms taken. There was a lot
literally and figuratively. The fungus among us, man.
Yeah, fungus was on the mind.
Yeah.
Literally.
You fungaloids. Bunch of fungaloid guys.
But yeah, that was the thing but here's the thing about Super Mario Brothers, and I think you did describe it very well, but it really is like an amalgamation of really great ideas, great visual design, some really unique choices that are for a kid movie. But in the grand scheme of things, I was very bored.
Yes, it does drag quite a bit. And I think it is partly because of the nature of video game movies. They're such a difficult beast. And also because you have this movie that looks like it wants to be Blade Runner or something, the gritty, well-worn, underground, subterranean-looking Dino Hatton.
Well, it
and
wants to be this colorful,
but then it has
adult world.
Yeah, so you have this, Blade Runner-y looking, gritty, crime-ridden looking, apocalyptic
dystopian
world, and then you have this super colorful set of sweet Brooklyn plumbers.
Yeah,
and they're naive little attractions to dinosaur women.
Yeah, and that's the thing, or reptilian women.
Well,
so
I mean, they're descended from dinosaurs specifically. So
sure, and yeah, it's interesting. So, good God, this movie.
And they look just like human beings, except for they lay eggs, and I have no idea how that works.
God, that must hurt like hell.
Oh, Mazel Tov! It's a stone.
Oh my God.
Just think about passing a kidney stone. There you.
Oh God. So yeah. So I'll try and describe this movie very quickly. So back in 65 million years ago, there was a meteorite that basically sent all the dinosaurs to this underworld, this alternate underworld called Dino Land or Koopa Land or whatever. Or I guess
I kept hearing Dino Hatton.
Yeah. And so all the dinosaurs evolved from, so they all evolved to be humans like us. Which is weird. I don't understand the science behind that, but whatever. Even though there's still there's dinosaurs, like regular dinosaurs roaming around. But
that's when the dinosaur creationists ask, well, if we evolved from dinosaurs, why are there still dinosaurs on the world?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. But still, there's this but yeah, it's still, so they've evolved and they're all kind of living under, and King Koopa, played by Dennis Hopper, is wanting to get out of Dino Hatton. He wants to see the other world.
Yeah, he wants to go across the universe, man. He wants to cross the Universal Bridge. I'm King Koopa, man, and I'm coming for your Manhattan, man.
Yeah, yeah, and so, but for whatever reason, this meteorite somehow like has a little porthole that allows humans and dinosaur people to go back and forth.
For some reason, all the humans that are in Dino Land before Mario and Luigi show up are fossilized.
yeah, they're fossilized. I guess they just didn't make it to the hole in time.
Must be, yes. But a lot of human skeletons hanging around for random reasons.
Yeah, it's an odd little thing.
Yeah, there's some weird, like the weird, almost body horror of the de-evolution and the fungus and the dead human corpses all over. The
primordial sludge that's on the ground.
The slime and the sort of intimation of underworld and crime and prostitution in Dino Hatton that all kind of.
And the king is just a giant fungus covering the city.
Yeah, yeah. That's the body horror. That's like where that's where the Cronenberg comes in.
Yeah, it's like a mix of Cronenberg but Blade Runner, and then it's somehow still a kids movie.
Yeah, there's some weird Care Bears crap on the top of it.
Yeah, it's odd. It's an odd movie, but somehow it's still boring. And it's
not as boring as it would be because of all that. But,
sure, yeah.
The action, the movie really does seem to move at a snail's pace. A lot of ways. It does.
Like this is like
it's like 20 minutes or more before they even make it to Dino Hatton.
Right. Well, I mean, the setup is fine. Like I understand.
Right, but it does take a long time.
Oh, of course, I understand. Yeah, it just takes forever to do. It does take forever, but even when the movie gets started, it still halts. It still is like,
right. And it's also overly complicated. I think that maybe slows it down too because you've got King Koopa's the bad guy.
Right.
You've got the Scarpelli brothers, who are land developers and plumbers on the other side. All these bad guys and all these subplots that are kind of misdirecting things.
Yeah, and it seems like the script or the screenwriter in. The script is just going out of its way to try and extend itself by creating different plot lines, like Big Bertha stealing the meteorite.
Yeah, there's a lot of obfuscation going on in this movie, and Big Bertha changes allegiances.
Right. Well, everyone changes allegiances except for Koopa.
Oh yes. Well, and then there's the de-evolution thing where they take Mojo Nixon, and turn him into a dinosaur, and that he's supposed to be too stupid not to obey. But he still disobeys.
Yeah, he still disobeys. Well, he's that's the thing I don't get about this movie. So if they are, submissive at that point.
One side note to add, that the dinosaur version of Mojo Nixon is actually not a special effect. That's actually just Mojo Nixon without any makeup on.
All right, let's check in on our other guest host for this episode. Back to the Youth Critic Retrospective. I'm here with James Rasile. Is that right?
Rasile, but you're close. You're close. Very close. Good try.
Thanks. And so, James, very quickly, why don't you tell everyone about your podcast?
I'm a co-host on the Rebel Scum Podcast. I do it once a week with Brock Smink. We have other shows on there that we do with a couple other guys, Andrew Fantasia and Ron McDonald. And we just talk about Star Wars, all the fun stuff that's going on in the world of that universe, which is a lot right now.
It is. It's going to probably never end. So.
Oh yeah. If Disney has their way, it will never end, and it'll be going long after I'm gone.
Star Wars. We'll see. Star Wars forever. Yay.
Yeah. We'll see.
So James, we're talking about Super Mario Brothers here. And I was wondering, what's your history with the Super Mario Brothers movie?
The movie, I was born in 1981. I'm pretty old right now, and I grew up with video games my whole life. My parents had a ColecoVision before I was born, so I grew up into that household. And my grandmother had an Atari, and my cousins had. So I was always surrounded by it. And I remember the first time the commercials I saw on TV for the NES Super Mario Brother game, and I was head over heels. So I fell in love with the Super Mario Brother franchise, and then the movie came out, And I remember hearing all the negativity surrounding it leading up to the release of that movie. But I didn't care. I was really, really excited to see it. And 25 years ago, I was 11 years old at the time. And nobody would take me to go see this movie. I was deprived as a child. I remember we went on a trip to, I was deprived. No, I wasn't really. But we went on a trip to Florida. I live in Toronto, Canada. We went to a trip to Florida, and the 7-Elevens had Florida Marlins. I think were brand new at the time. So it was the Florida Marlins Big Gulp cups, and also the Super Mario Brother Big Gulp cups, and I went right for the Mario Brother cup. I bought a cracked magazine that had Mario and Luigi on it, playing Nintendo, and the Nintendo they were playing was like Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo stuck in the TV. I remember that I bought that at Publix, and I was obsessed with the movie without having seen the movie. Then a year later, it came out, or whatever, it came out on pay-per-view. Taped it off of TV one night, and I continued to be obsessed with that movie. It was weird because I knew what it was. I knew, and I kept trying to be like, well, that's from this part of the game, even though it really wasn't. But I was like, that's that part of the game, and that's that part of the game, and I would make it up in my mind. I have a weird love affair with Super Mario Brother movie.
So my history with this started a month ago when I said, "Okay, we're gonna do this."
It's a long history.
Yeah, it started a month ago, and I was like, "Okay, we'll do the Super Mario Brothers movie as part of the retrospective series of summer of 1993." And that was final. And then I watched the movie 2 weeks ago, and before I watched the movie, it took me forever to find this movie because it's not on any like streaming platform. And then if you try, not saying you should or shouldn't, but if you try like to just even stream it like on like an off site, it's still like it's hard to find. Like it's a legitimately hard movie to find. And the only way I found it was there's a video rental store in Atlanta that had the DVD copy. So I watched it that way, and that's my history of it. Is I saw it 2 weeks ago, and I'm struggling to keep it in my memory because it's kind of forgettable, and it's kind of
wow. Those are fighting words over here.
It's kind of forgettable.
I have it on. I own the DVD, so I taped it off of TV in the 90s. Then in 2000, mid to late 2000s, I was working at a TV station, and during break one day, I said, "Man, I wish I had a copy of the Super Mario Brothers movie." I don't know how that came up or why I said that. And one of the people I was working with said, "It's at this little mom and pop shop video store at the mall." And I said, "No, it's not." And we went, and they had one copy left, and I bought that copy. And it was the happiest day up until that point of my adult life.
I literally thought 3 weeks ago I was gonna have to buy it. Like I was gonna have to buy the DVD and spend like $10 like on eBay. Because it's really hard to get. It
is. I actually do know one place. I'm not gonna say where, but I did see a streaming version of it once. But yeah, I own it on DVD. I would love a Blu-ray copy of it, because the aspect ratio doesn't really work on my Blu-ray player. It's really small. But yeah, it isn't the easiest movie to find. Like if it was on Google Play or iTunes, I would have a copy on both. I could watch it on whatever device I wanted, whenever. But I definitely would own it, a digital copy of it. But I think Nintendo really wants us to, like George Lucas with the Star Wars Holiday Special, they want us to believe that never happened.
Well, it's kind of hard to forget a $50 million movie.
Well, especially one that good.
Yeah. Well, that's subjective, but yeah. Well,
it's terrible. It's terribly amazing. I think part of the charm I find with it is, you know, it there's I guess it's a thing, you know. Like I said, I was 11 years old when that movie came out, and it there was something about maybe just being that age, you know, and seeing something at that time, because there are movies I look back on fondly and they're garbage. And it could just, and you know, the Mario Brother movie was one that we knew was like, it wasn't like I knew it was a good, I didn't think it was a good movie ever. It was just one that I somehow had this attachment to. And I think it's going back to just that time in my life and being obsessed with Mario and being able to see past it being nothing like a Mario Brother movie. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the Double Dragon movie, but that movie is triumphant. It's bad.
No, I haven't.
Oh, you need to check that one out. It's like, have you seen Street Fighter?
Actually, if I may, this is the only like video game adaptation I've seen of like 80s, 90s.
So you should consider yourself lucky.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I will say, I would say of those three, and I do have Double Dragon not so much, even though the video game I'm still obsessed with. Super Mario is probably the best of the three in terms of story. I don't know what merit that holds, but if that means anything, but I will say that.
Wow, that's such a low bar. That is such a low bar. But yeah, Super Mario Brothers, like, I guess my feelings are that it's very well designed. Like, it's a very interesting production design, and I actually think Bob Hoskins, excuse me,
Hoskins,
and John Leguizamo, I think they were perfectly well casted. Like, I can buy that they could be brother, or I can buy the situation, and then I can buy. But other than that, I'm like, so it's just a typical 90s cliche. It's kind of a typical 90s cliched story where two incompetent people are stuck in a situation, and things just keep, you know, getting worse and worse. And then for whatever reason, screenwriting convenience or whatnot, they somehow prevail. They prevail and fight the villain, much like it's like shooting a target, and finally at the last second they hit their target. So and that's kind of how I feel about Super Mario Brothers, is that it's a movie where you can see a vision trying to poke its way out, but nothing quite land. The jokes don't quite land, and it feels very much like the typical Ed Solomon 90s script.
I think part of the problem with the movie is it's very misplaced. I've read people saying that it's it's actually a good sci-fi film if you take away it being about Mario Brothers, and I don't know if I could ever look at it like that because of my fondness for the Super Mario Brothers, as like it's just I'll always connect it to. But I feel like it is very, very misplaced, and everything they were trying to accomplish just feels like they were making the wrong movie at the wrong time.
Well, let me ask this then: where would be the best time to have done this kind of movie? Because the way I look at it is that they were trying to do an adult version of Super Mario Brothers.
I think they needed to look at, I don't know how familiar you are with this, but the Masters of the Universe, Dolph Lundgren as He-Man. I think they really should have taken a look at that and seen how pitiful that was. Because that, for me, is what, I mean, I would say Mario Brothers is a much better, see, Mario Brothers is right on top of the mountain compared to every other movie that we're talking about. But I think Mario Brothers is superior to the Masters of the Universe film. I call it a film. We'll talk about that later. But I mean, if you look at that was a very kind of serious take on He-Man. It was one that did not explore the lore that we were given, quote unquote lore that we were giving in the animated series. This was based off of, I think, concepts of He-Man before it was fleshed out into quirky animated form. But that was it was almost taken to that same type of level that Mario Brothers does. And the question has to be asked is, who are you making this movie for? Because, you know, I think now, like, and now to answer to your question, I think, you know, that seemed like a good time to do it. But I would say they didn't have, like, movies have gone through these weird ups and downs over the years. You know, the 70s is all gritty. The 80s is just cocaine-driven madness. You know, you've got like, hey, here's, you know, like Gremlins and Goonies and Die Hard is like the same era. You know, Indiana, like it's just a weird. They just had fun in the 80s. Then the 90s, you know, like they said, they were like, let's just focus on these weird cliched plots. And then in 2000, things seem to kind of be evening out. Though there are a lot of aliens in the sky now, trying to bring stuff down to it, but I think now, like, technology has caught up. They're doing this animated one. Illumination's doing this animated one. I think people have, you know, with the MCU and all that, studios have really kind of figured these things out. And you can't take away from what Mario Brothers was at the time. But I just think it was definitely a lot of wrong decisions that led to a timeless tale of awesomeness that is the Super Mario Brothers motion picture.
So let's get into specifics here. Why do you think it's awesome?
I cannot back up that statement with anything in the movie. Like I said, there's just something about it that when I watch it, I truly enjoy. I love that they somehow made Toad a Goomba in it. And Toad is my favorite Mario Brother character, for what it's worth. And I think it took me 2 viewings to realize that was Toad. But I was amazed by that. Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, I think, are actually fantastic in the movie. Like, I just really like them, their chemistry in it. I would have watched another movie with them for sure. I love the idea that she has the princess has a flamethrower at the end of it. I do love, you know, Trust the Fungus. It's just stuff like that. There's just little tiny things, but bombs, stuff like that make it fun. And again, but it's like you said, it's that early 90s nostalgia factor that, you know, before CG kind of took over movie making, where you get like the weird costumes, you know, they're eating lizards, hot dog lizards and stuff like that. There's just something about it that I would never ever in a million years recommend the movie to anybody, but there's something about it that I could never say I don't enjoy the movie. I don't know if that is a good answer or a horrible answer, but it I can't explain what it is about it that I like. There's just this vibe. It's the vibe.
I think that's actually a pretty good explanation, because I wouldn't recommend like to sit down and watch it by yourself. Like just sit there and just I wouldn't recommend sitting in a theater by yourself and watching it, but I would recommend people if they are going to watch this movie, have some drinks, maybe find some shrooms, get some pizza, and then have some friends over. It should be a communal experience. Like, get some group of people together and watch it, because I think it would just be too boring if you sat there straight with a bottled water and just sit there and watch it like with your arms crossed. Like, I think it would just be boring, because this movie, like, it has a lot of like interesting, I don't want to say ideas, but interesting visuals. Like, it has interesting things going on. Like, Yoshi is a really cool animatronic. You have Big Bertha. Going around. You have strippers in the police department. You have all these weird things that you would never see in a kids movie, and for whatever reason, if you just sat there and watched it straight, you just would not enjoy it. Because primarily, I think because it's just so. It just happens so quick. All the stuff happens so quick, and all the jokes just don't really land because of either timing or whatnot. So yeah, I would. So while yes, I don't have the history to back up Super Mario Brothers. That's just what I would say is about Super Mario Brothers.
Although the end credits song by Roxette, Almost Unreal, is the perfect end credit song of that. If you look at all the 80s, early 90s, end credit songs is a lost art, and that one nailed it.
It is a lost art because you primarily, in music nowadays, you just play the score. You just play the score over again, but yeah, I mean, it's a lost art. I would love to get them back. Let me ask you this as a random question. What do you think did kill the end credits song? Or put a damper on it?
I think just time. I think, again, it's one of those ups. I mean, we still get them. They're just not. I remember it was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Bryan Adams, Everything I Do It For You. That song is the end credit song. And I remember reading that it was supposed to be in the movie. I can't remember if it's actually in the movie. I haven't seen the movie in forever. It's not as good as Super Mario Brothers, let's be honest. I'm just joking. But I haven't seen the movie in a while. But it was supposed to be in the movie, and they decided to make it the post-credit, or not the post-credit, post-credit. They decided to make it the end credit song. Bryan Adams was actually upset about that because that was seen as like a knock at the time, which is weird, I would say, because Goonies are good enough. But I just think it was time. Just time kind of went on, and people don't sit in the theater anymore unless it's a Marvel movie, and they just think, I would love to see a Marvel film end with like a Cyndi Lauper beat or something like that. But I just think it's time, and it was cheesy, and like I said, we do get them every once in a while, but it's usually something a little more upbeat and hip nowadays than the teeny pop that we used to get.
All right. So, do we have any more? Do you have any more thoughts on Super Mario Brothers? I know we're short on time, but do we have any more thoughts on it before we go on?
No, I just think the Illumination's doing this new movie, and I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be. I hope John Leguizamo does something for it. Not Luigi, but something like he voices like a Goomba, or I don't know, something like that would be kind of fun because Bob Hoskins. Yeah, Bob Hoskins obviously can't have any part in that because of his passing. But it would be nice if like John Leguizamo was offered, even if he was the voice of the King, or just something small, like you said, a cameo. That would be awesome. But no, I think this is Super Mario Brothers is a bad movie that lives on because it is a bad movie. It's kind of cool that we're talking about it 25 years later.
It is. It's very interesting, and it's even more interesting that it keeps popping up on IMDb like pop charts. Like it goes up.
It hit the 20th top 20 movies like the week of its anniversary.
Yeah, and it just shows the staying power of it.
Yeah, it's like Roxette said, it's almost unreal.
Yep. All right, so James, where can the good people find you?
You can find me. I'm on all of the social medias at Petzafina, PEZZAFAFINA. It's double Z in Canada. And Rebel Scum Podcast on the YouTubes. That's where you can find me talking Star Wars all the time.
I will have those links in the description of this podcast below.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
You're welcome. And hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Youth Critic Retrospectives. I am here with Gina Aversa.
Hello, how you doing?
Very well indeed. So we're talking. So, Gene, we're talking about Super Mario Brothers. What's your history with Super Mario Brothers? What's the game and the movie? Have you played it?
I did play the game when I was a kid. I didn't have the Super Nintendo. I had the Sega Genesis, but some people had it, so I was able to play it. And yeah, it's a fun game. I love Mario, even though he's not a plumber anymore. And the movie I got when I was like 10, someone gave it to me as a gift, and I never was exposed to that movie before. And it is, I don't know, such a 90s-esque film where it's like a time capsule of that film, of that era.
Yeah, it's a movie of the 90s because it has a lot of the 90s cliches in there.
Yeah.
Like the heroes, they're grossly incompetent in everything until the very end. And they somehow this that trope is very prominent to like Bryan Singer's X-Men.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because it's not a total bash on the movie, but it's very to an audience member that's like, can the characters be a little bit more smarter, more because in this movie they're Mario and Luigi, they're very like they get to Dino Hatton and they're just
Dino Manhattan.
very they're really incompetent moment. They get they're arrested. There's just not the chip or the little piece of the meteorite gets stolen from them. Happens. I don't know how that happens. Still, it's just the list of incompetent things, and then at the end, somehow at the end, Mario and Koopa get a big fight, and they somehow involve guns and de-evolve Koopa to his primordial stage and win. It's kind of like someone trying to learn how to shoot a shotgun and they're just trying to hit a hole, and finally 2 hours later they hit like the one hole.
Yeah, that's a interesting analogy. I wouldn't disagree with that. But yeah, it's nothing really works in this movie. I don't think anything works. Maybe the casting. I don't know. I will say, just back to your thing about the characters. Fun fact is, there's a lot of scenes where Bob Hoskins, because he just like signed up for the paycheck because he didn't give a shit. He was drunk filming, like he had a flask. And for a lot of scenes that you see him in, he's just really like plastered and wasted. So the scenes that we do know for sure he was drunk on were the scene where he's dancing with the lady. That scene he was
Big
drunk.
Bertha?
Big Bertha, he was pissed drunk. I think some of the early stuff when they're in New York, he's drunk, and also John Leguizamo is drunk too because he was sharing the flask with him. Leguizamo admits this in some interview, but yeah, those are the scenes I know.
How big was
sure.
this flask?
I don't know. It was kept having maybe his assistant refilling it or something. But yeah, that maybe explains a few things about the acting in this movie. What are your thoughts on that?
It doesn't, because the performances from my mind, they're not that bad. It's just it's just loud. Bob Hopkins' performance, it was
May
just
rest in peace.
loud. Like there wasn't. Yes, rest in peace. It was just loud and obnoxious, and the thing is about the performances, they're okay, but across the board, because the only actor that got anything to do really was Dennis Hopper. Everyone else was,
Dennis Hopper was probably out of his mind too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, this is the time where he was playing every villain, except him and John Lithgow were like having a competition, sort of how many villains can we play in a movie.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper hates that movie too, though.
Well, it seems like everyone hates it. John Leguizamo seems like the only person that's like, we tried. Like he doesn't love it, but he was like, you know what, we tried. We really did try to make this work.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, another interesting fact is the directors were this couple that never directed a movie before. They just worked on commercials.
Right. Rocky Morton. Yeah, they worked on commercials, but they worked, I think.
Yeah,
and
I
they
believe so.
did, and then they did DOA with Dennis Quaid, and that movie was like a small hit, but it impressed everyone enough to be like, okay, we're gonna continue on with this couple for Super Mario Brothers, and you can see a style trying to, simmer out of the Super Mario Brothers movie. Like you can see a visual style and a visual interesting is trying to pop out, but every joke doesn't. Land. The story is kind of boring, especially when you realize the characters are grossly incompetent.
Right.
Including Koopa. Including Koopa. Like everyone's just grossly incompetent, and so you're just waiting for everyone to accidentally like shoot in the right hole to get this one thing to happen. Because really, if you think about it, the whole story should only take like 30 minutes to tell, but everything just kind of drags. Everything kind of just goes on. It's repetitive, and that's really my issue with the film is, while there is an interesting style to it, the issue with Super Mario Brothers is it's repetitive storytelling, and it's not really that funny. It's not really nothing really lands. And I mean, the pizza gag is kind of interesting for a couple bits, but still, but even that kind of fizzles out. So it's and even this, like just some of the things just doesn't make sense. Like, Daisy is like trying to, grab onto Luigi when she's being sucked into the portal, or she's getting drawn back. But when we see like Mario go through the portal to Dino Manhattan, he's like flying and like descending into hell or something.
Yeah.
And we're like, so how is this happening? What? Is Daisy just really tall or what?
Yeah, physics. Physics were not the forte of this movie.
Nothing worked for this movie.
No.
I don't know. And it's just more. And it's more interesting because I was kind of looking up the film, and they want and Morton and Jinkle, they wanted a more adult take on Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
they wanted a more like PG-13 take on it, which I guess could work since Super Mario Brothers had been around since the early 80s, and it's been however many years since then. The kids were old enough to be teenagers and to go and watch it, but still, it's like if you look at the game, it's like it's all bright and colorful. It's like an acid trip.
Yeah.
And this movie, it's like an acid trip for kids, or the game is, and then the movie itself is like an acid trip for no one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad acid trip. I mean, I'm sure it brought a lot of stuff back for Dennis Hopper. A lot of flashbacks, maybe.
Oh gosh. So was there anything that you liked about the movie?
I like Yoshi. I think Yoshi was kind of cool.
Really liked the Yoshi puppet or animatronic because it looked really good. It looked convincing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, very. I'm sure like they got a lot of stuff from Jurassic Park. Learned a lot from dinosaurs. A lot of dinosaur movies in the 90s. What's that?
Well, I think it started with Michael Crichton's book, or the boom kind of started with Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, and then it just took, and then the media tried to implement its own kind of dinosaur somehow, because we had finally figured out how to do animatronics with the Alien movies. particularly Aliens with the Queen. So we kind of figured it out, but of course, quite matched Spielberg's Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
No one quite matched it. So, but then again, I mean, the Yoshi in this movie looked really good, and then they did, almost a full animatronic for Copa when he's back into his Cretaceous stage,
Right.
I think. So I mean, the special effects in the movie, they were very well done, and even some of like the matte paintings or some of like the miniatures and the camera swooping in to Daisy on top of a tower is really well done. I mean, there's really good, like they spent a lot of money on these effects.
Yeah, they spent a lot of money on this movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of money was spent in the 90s. Not as much as now, but a lot of money was spent.
Yeah, makes you wonder how much of that was went to the movie, and then how much of it went into like drugs.
That's probably more the 80s.
Yeah, of course.
How much cocaine went into? But yeah, I don't know. I thought this movie was just fine. I'm forgetting a lot about it as the more we talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say Yoshi was the highlight, and he's not even in it that much.
Right. Yeah. Disappointed.
And it's the only character I think.
Disappointed that Donkey Kong wasn't in it either.
Mm-hmm. Well. What was it about the Donkey Kong reference?
I don't know if there was. I don't think there was Donkey Kong, but wish he was in that movie. But then again, they'd find a way to kind of mess him up too.
Yeah. I'll say this about Super Mario Brothers: it was a well-intentioned movie, or the goal was well-meaning. It was, I think, the goals were too ambitious for Morton and Jinkle, and I think I wonder what would have happened, because one of the other fun facts about the movie as well is they basically quit the project.
Oh, did they?
About a couple. Well, I still don't know if they finished the movie themselves, or if the producers just did a cut of the movie. But from what I gathered is that their agent told them to get off set because it was they had made the shooting so miserable because they didn't quite know what they wanted to do.
Nope.
So they left, and then the cinematographer Dean Simler finished shooting the movie. I don't know if he stuck around to edit the movie or whatnot, but it does feel like Morton Jinkle had a vision, and then everything just went horribly wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had a vision. Yeah, I'll give them that. I don't know if any of it really got across.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because they haven't done anything really since. So,
live in infamy.
Yeah, they live in infamy. So, with that said, do you have any more thoughts on Super Mario Brothers? Because I don't have much more to say.
Well, I've only seen it when I was a kid, and when I was at a friend's party, pretty little drunk, and they're quite different viewing experiences. Seeing it, maybe the same viewing, maybe some of it works when you're a kid, but it sure doesn't work when you're an adult.
It's more boring if you're an adult.
Yeah. Well, you have to see with friends too.
Because. Oh yeah, get really drunk, possibly super baked, I would definitely not recommend acid because then you will not.
Oh no.
Then you'll be causing trouble.
Yeah. Don't do that at all.
But yeah, it's just interesting because it's like you have to elevate your own kind of giggle. You have to elevate your own. You have to get in a certain mood in order to watch because it's so because it just the movie does nothing for you. You have to own excitement and own your own kind of fun for the film. So so are you ready to get back to Justin?
Yeah, of course.
Ready to get back to the okay. So Gene, where can the good people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, G9892. You can look up the Waffle Press YouTube channel, SoundCloud, iTunes, and subscribe if you want. I hope so.
All right, thanks, Gene. We're gonna get back to the main show. Thanks, and all right. So with the Toad, like, he basically disobeys. So apparently they do have conscience, or they do want to break out of like whatever like programming or mind control or whatever they have.
And there's things about this movie that it can't decide what it is. I was watching this movie and go, I can see idiocracy in this. That the dinosaurs are kind of disheveled and unorganized, and they have issues organizing with each other, and that their society is decaying, right? But then they have the super uber tech, this de-evolution gun that they have, so they can't make up their minds. Are they super high tech, or are they devolving on their own?
Yeah,
there are questions they raise.
And also, why would you devolve other than for power? I guess why would you make a machine to de-evolve? So in the first place,
well, this is not real evolution in the first place. That Koopa says, we think of evolution as being going from the lower to the higher, when evolution is not about going higher; it's about survival. That's all evolution does. That humans' insistence on higher organisms is not something that's actually included in biological evolution. So this whole insistence that we're more quote unquote evolved than a cat or a dog or a bacterium is not a scientific point of view. So
it's more from a primal instinct.
Yeah, or just a different state.
Okay.
That evolution isn't about making something better. It's about keeping it alive. That's the only motivation that evolution has, is survival. And if a bacteria is still alive today, then it's doing its job, and it's just as valid as we are, and just as evolved as we are. It's still here,
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And
sorry,
no,
Bio 101 over.
No, it's fine. But even with you saying that, kind of brings up my kind of problem with the movie is that it's not that interesting.
Yeah, they spend and boy, does Dennis Hopper do a lot of exposition in this movie. He's going on about evolution.
You gotta explain this movie,
right? But they do it in the clunkiest way possible. They just put the whole plot basically is just explicated. It's basically an info dumps. That's like the James Bond.
The James Bond villain,
explaining his plot to James Bond before he lasers him in half, and he does this constantly. He does this 3 or 4 times in the movie.
He has to explain this to Daisy. He has to explain this to his co-boss, co-court.
Yeah. He explains it to Mario and Luigi.
Yeah, he's got to explain it to the king, who's a fungus.
The fungus among us, people. Hey, kid, your dad's a fungus.
And that's the thing. So they have they have their Princess Daisy, who played by Samantha Mathis, who isn't that bad in the movie. She just is whatever.
He gave her nothing to work with, man.
Well, no, yeah, really, Dennis Hopper has the most to work with here.
Yes, and even he is sitting there half the time saddled with just explaining things.
Yeah, and because Bob Hopkins is like, kind of yelling or grouching his dialogue, and then you have Leguizamo, who is just Leguizamoing the scene, like. But then even his character sucks because there's a whole bit in the movie where they get held up by this older lady, and she's like, "I want 2 coins" or whatnot, and they're trying to figure it out what it is, what she's talking about. And she sees the meteorite, and she just goes out to grab it, and the whole time I'm thinking, I'm against hitting elderly people, but she's robbing you, and you both could just take her and just like throw her off the mount or throw her off into the cliff right where you're standing, and then she'll get run over. At this point.
And their comic relief falls flat most of the time. Like
none
Spike,
of the jokes land.
Like Spike and the other one, the henchmen that are chasing them around all the time, kind of randomly, and I don't understand.
Nothing lands. Yeah. In this movie.
Like they have this weird slapstick where they're like looking at each other, and I don't get it. And they do these on the nose things, like he grabs hot dogs. He goes, apparently they're made of dog. It's like, come on, guys, you try a little harder.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It's like this movie. It has a lot of jokes, but the jokes are not funny.
And there's something flat about the way they're delivered, too, And they're so matter of fact and so, in your face. Like in the beginning, Mario and Luigi are plumbers. So, of course, they've got a gun rack filled with plungers, for God's fucking sakes.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, they're plumbers. It's part of their character. And
like they don't want to have a plumber van. And they don't wear coveralls, and they went to plumbing jobs. Do we have to have a collection of plungers on the damn wall? I think that's over the top.
Yeah. That's the thing is every joke. Not every joke just doesn't. The only joke that kind of landed for me was the pizza bit, where he's ordering a pizza.
Oh, hold it there. Don't make it spicy.
Yeah, and like the pizza guy coming up, like just as he's like got everybody. Which I'm like, how the fuck how did you wait, did I miss something? How did you teleport to these people?
Right. Yeah, well, a lot of movies do that. Well, there's also, my favorite line of the movie is, Luigi, trust the fungus.
Yeah.
Trust the fungus. I mean, that could be,
is it Mario?
No, it's Luigi that says it. I'm pretty sure it's John Leguizamo says that.
Mario's the one that's hesitant to...
Yeah, and Luigi says, trust the fungus.
Okay.
Because Bob Hoskins is going to swing from it, and he's trepidatious. And Luigi tells him to, because he knows, because he's smitten with Daisy, and he's figured out that the fungus is helping them. But he's not quite certain that it's her dad yet, or he's getting close to that. But he knows the fungus is on their side, and that the fungus is allied with Daisy. So he likes Daisy, and he's aware of what Daisy does and stuff like that. So there are some characterizations there that you do get.
Yeah, because the fungus is kind of overwatching everybody.
Yeah, and it's everywhere. The king has basically subsumed the city, and not figuratively, but literally.
Yeah.
He's watching you. He's watching you when you poop. He's watching you in your sleep.
Yeah, and he's got little, like, the bombs with him.
Yeah, the bombs.
Yeah, so...
which is weird. The fungus has a collection of bombs hidden in his gullet.
Yeah. Maybe he stored those before he got de-eviled.
It's handy. I mean, I should start storing the bombs now.
Yeah.
Somebody turns me into fungus.
Yeah, it's just this whole movie. It's like
odd.
It's odd and boring, which is so surprising because this came from the Max Headroom guys.
Yes. Was it Morton and
Morton and
Yankel?
Jekyll.
Yeah.
Morton and Jekyll.
Yeah, Rocky Morton and Annabelle Yankel. They directed the commercialized versions, yes, of the British and the made-for-TV movie of Max Headroom, which was actually quite effective in a similar but different way.
Right.
You can see with their dystopian, underground, smuggy stuff, very similar design as to the Max Headroom movie. But something went wrong here. I mean, seriously.
I think what happened was, and this is not my judgment on the movie. This is just what I have what I'm picking up from reading all the production notes is that or reading about the production is that it seemed to me that Morton and Jinkle were kind of over their head.
Yes.
And because this is the
First
biggest
big
movie.
budget. Yeah, it was $40 million or something, and then they went over budget.
Yeah, it almost cost $50 million.
Yeah, it was scheduled for. I mean, this was 25 years ago.
Yeah, and this was at the time when a $50 million movie was still that's still a blockbuster. That's like making $100 million movie today, $100 or $150 million movie today.
I think maybe it's a lot of money, no matter.
It's
what.
a lot of money.
And they went through producers, they went through actors. Like Dustin Hoffman was once tapped to play.
Danny DeVito was tapped.
Yeah, Danny DeVito was tapped to play Mario each. And they went to several actors. They actually had Michael Keaton on tap at one point even. There was a bunch of people, and they rewrote the script like a dozen times or more. There were 3 different crews working on the script.
Yeah, and there was and it still has that 90s cliche trope of like the heroes are the most incompetent people in the movie. But somehow at the end, last 5-10 minutes, they pull it in enough to where they beat the bad guy.
Right. They just bounce off the walls off enough until they finally found the door.
Yeah. Which, as a viewer, it's frustrating to watch because you're just like, fuck it.
And they're supposed to be brothers and they're supposed to be a team. But at the beginning, another thing that frustrated me was how much Mario berates and verbally abuses Luigi at the beginning. He's constantly insulting him.
It's not even. It doesn't feel like brothers. It feels like coworkers.
And a bulliest one at that.
Yeah, it's not like a brotherly relationship. Oh.
Yeah, there's a lot of insulting going along between them, especially towards Luigi. and again, script problems. And they were saying that they were rewriting this on the fly, that they didn't have time to learn lines because they were rewriting again on the second half of production when Rocky and Annabelle were being subverted, and they talked about them, like the crew in the cast had nasty T-shirts made up about them and stuff. We kind of just witnessed a similar situation with Solo of a directing duo getting cast aside for to finish the movie, and because of whatever issues came about, and so with that, with this movie, what happened was, according to sources, is that Morton and Jinkle apparently didn't have like a strong vision or a strong creative. They didn't quite know what they were making, or they didn't quite have the grasp of their vision. So that's why they were constantly rewriting, and that caused, of course, the actors to get all upset because actors they need to memorize their lines. They need to, Yeah, because they're writing new script material the night before a shoot, and you don't have time to memorize the get off book, as you would say.
Right, and on top of that, the crew was getting upset because the more they wrote, the more locations they had to build, the more they had to kind of
and more effects they had to
do,
film, and more stunts and all this kind of stuff.
And they were already on a timetable.
And it was summertime. It was like 98 degrees in North Carolina. So we're talking coastal North Carolina in the coast. I mean, you're talking humid.
In this old steel mill.
Yeah, I thought it was a concrete factory.
Oh, you're right. Anyway,
They're in this abandoned concrete factory, and it's like 98 damn degrees in the middle of summer in North Carolina.
And they had built this elaborate set where every little store had its own function. It wasn't like they just built like cover sets or built like sets like you see on the Disney lot.
Actual working. It was actual working sets. Yeah. So people were getting frustrated. Very frustrated.
And I think I don't remember exactly, but like towards the end of the shoot, finally their agent called them and said, just walk off the set. Just please, let someone finish the shoot. Like, they'll figure it out how to like.
And they haven't directed a mainstream production since.
That's right. They directed a movie beforehand with Meg.
Yeah.
That's a TV series. They directed DOA with.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's right. Yeah, right. Which actually wasn't that bad. You look at Max Headroom or DOA, and there seems to be some competence there.
Right, but I think it just went over their head because, and also it didn't help that everyone, because they had already made the negative pickup deal. This was an independent movie too. They'd already made the pickup deal with Disney for them to distribute it and release it. So everyone had their mind of, okay, this is going to be a Disney movie. This is going to be a fairy tale movie. They were wanting to make an adult movie,
Right, like a Blade Runner or
like a mature. I wouldn't say a porn, but they were making they were wanting to make a more adult PG-13 R-rated movie,
soft R. Yeah, which I think is kind of a miscalculation when you're going with Mario Brothers. It seems a little odd to me, a choice,
Right. I mean, if you look at the timeline, the people who did start playing Super Mario Brothers in the 80s, they were old enough. They were all adults, so maybe
but I
they
know
were
lots
trying
of
to.
kids that did play Mario Brothers, and I just think that it's a lark. Mario Brothers is a classic. Basically, I would have imagined doing something more like the 1939 version of Wizard of Oz, colorful, a straightforward, mechanical plot, but with characters that sing and dance on the top of it. That would have been more Disney or the Wizard of Oz. Yes, if you're going to do a dark and gritty video game, do a Metal Gear Solid or a GTA 5 or something.
Yeah, and it just seemed like they were going more dark.
For that time, Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, they were wanting to go more. I don't want to say gritty. I think they were just going more like adult, have more adult humor.
I thought they actually did say gritty, but
maybe they did. But what I took away from the notes was more they wanted a more just adult humor movie, like Max Headroom or.
Yeah, and I would say Max Syndrome is pretty gritty.
Yeah. Okay, so but yeah, that's kind of my.
And DOA is a film noir. That's gritty,
All right. Yeah. All right. So yeah, it's just interesting that they had this project because this is a big deal.
Yeah.
This is going to be one of the first actual video game adaptations.
Yes, it was the first video game movie that I'm aware of.
Right.
It's the earliest video game movie. And in a minute, in a wrap up, I have a theory about that. If you will, humor me when we're wrapping up, I will explain something that I believe about it. But that when you're ready to wind down the show.
Okay.
So the production.
So here's the thing about So yeah, in the end, they allowed Dean Simler, who was a DP, very famous DP, did actually Mad Max 3. He was just tasked to basically finish the movie.
Be the de facto director.
Do whatever it takes to. And I don't know, I can't remember if
Rocky Morton and
Jekyll, were still in the editing room or not, but from what I gather, if I had to take a guess, they weren't, because the movie itself is just cut together. It feels more like a cut together, it just doesn't have an interesting pace or an interesting flow. Because I think what probably could have saved Super Mario Brothers from its production troubles is if it was well edited, if it was crafted in the editing room, and if there was a way they could rework the jokes and whatnot to make it funnier.
There is an issue. They always say we'll fix it in post is a bad thing to rely on.
Oh yeah, I agree. But even Marvel does that with their movies.
Right,
so.
But sometimes there's only so much you can do.
Right, and I feel like, and I don't know if this was the result of this was just all they could do, or if this was really just fuck it, let's just finish it and get it out.
I think that part of it was there's only so much you can work with, but I also think that back then it was early in the if not the first, who said there were not any examples of anything to work from. They were kind of rooting around in the dark.
They were mavericks, pioneers.
Yeah, and they're pioneering this new kind of movie genre, an action genre based on video games is difficult. And they had no examples.
Right.
That could really apply, that they could work from, Yeah,
there wasn't like a Superman or a Batman they could, if they were making like a Spider-Man or something. There wasn't, there wasn't a template. Even, for comic book movies, you can still go back to the comics. Yeah. Whereas Super Mario Brothers, it's just a player video game.
Right. Well, this goes to my premise. I guess now is a good time to talk
about
it.
Go ahead.
That's the premise is, adapting a film from any other media has inherent difficulties in it.
Right.
But you think about adapting a movie from a novel, it's a well-worn and well-tried thing because you have, a beginning, a middle, and an end. That the narrative structure of a novel isn't that much different than a film, right?
Right.
There may be, instead of 3 acts or 4 acts you get in a film, there may be 5, 20, or 50 acts in a novel, but they all build, to the same. So you can condense those acts together into the and you have the rising 3-act structure. Easier from a novel, but a video game, if you actually did a true to the game Mario Brothers movie, it would be the boringest movie you watch because basically it would be Mario running around kicking turtles and bouncing his head off of bricks for 90% of it.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because that's how the movie is. That's how the movie feels anyway.
Right.
Because they just go to different things and then...
It's a platformer video game. It's a platformer movie.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think they got it right. I think by what you're describing, I think they got the tone right. Or they got the platform part right. But the problem is, like you said...
if you're a narrative structure onto that,
Yeah, and if you're not playing the platform... then why bother?
I mean, you think about if you did a true to the video game movie based on Grand Theft Auto 5. Would basically be some guy randomly driving around for 10 hours, every once in a while getting out of his car and beating somebody up with a baseball bat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think maybe you could probably sell that to some people.
Maybe you could. That could possibly like that Joel Schumacher movie, Falling Down.
Yes, Joel Schumacher made Grand Theft Auto before Grand Theft Auto was made. Holy Crizzolis, Batman!
Holy rusted metal, Batman! What? Oh gosh, I just brought up Joel Schumacher. Did he do a movie in 1993?
I have no idea. I thought Batman was later than that.
Let me look real quick, because, I know he was, fucking churning that shit out. He was... And so, but yeah. So, yeah, it was... do we have any more to say on Super Mario Brothers?
I think I pretty much said what I need to say about the Mario Brothers movie.
Oh my gosh,
it's
Falling
a weird
Down.
thing. Falling Down was in 93?
Yep, it was. It came out in February.
Interesting. So there you go.
We might need to do a retrospective on that one. I might need to do a retrospective on that one day because a lot of people said that was a good movie.
Yeah, and he was making a movie a year for quite a while there. Wow.
I think every year in the 90s he pretty much covered it.
You're gonna have to break your structure. Do Batman and Robin.
I've already done the Batman retrospective.
Oh man, Batman and Robin. That's
my god.
Oh, you can do Phone Booth because Phone Booth is set in a phone booth, even though cell phones are taking over. So, that was like a weird kind of a throwback movie.
Yeah, interesting. It almost became too dated.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Oh, the Lost Boys did Lost Boys. The first Flatliners. Falling Down. The Client. 8mm. Oh my God, 8mm. That is maybe one of the most maudlin, bathotic, over-the-top movies I've ever seen in my life. It's a Nick Cage movie.
Right.
That movie is very over the top.
So I think I'm done talking about Super Mario Brothers.
Yes, I think we've covered it. It's a mediocre movie that had lofty aims and goals and a very lofty budget, and kind of crashed back down like the meteor it depicted.
Yeah. Oh my God, I can't even with this movie anymore. It's not that, and I say this is it's inspiring to look at, and it's inspiring to see what they were trying to do, but I just don't think all the elements. I just think all the elements, creative elements, didn't work.
Well, I think there's an issue with production design and direction. You look at it and you would not know that cost $40 million to make.
No, you wouldn't.
It looks chintzy. It looks badly lit. It looks a slapdash in a lot of ways.
It looks like it kind of does in 2018 eyes. It does look like a set.
I mean, it almost looks like a made-for-TV movie, actually, in a lot of ways.
Kind of. Maybe.
I always thought that it had sort of a flat light, a flat effect. The colors were all muted. There was not a lot of depth to the direction. I mean, it always seemed like a very rushed movie, even though they took them like 6 months or something to film it.
Oh God, yeah. Maybe what happened was Steve Simler reshot the whole movie and they just didn't tell anybody.
But it just looks cheap to me. I don't, the whole thing just looks cheap. It's one of those things that you can't put your finger on specifically. Maybe if I was to watch it more often than I'm willing to.
Well, what's interesting is it's hard to track down making behind the scenes stuff because the DVD has nothing and there's not a Blu-ray release.
I would actually like to see something akin to that Richard Stanley making of movie about his
Lost Souls.
Lost Souls. I would like to see something akin that about Mario Brothers.
Yeah, because Richard Stanley's career kind of went down the tank after that movie.
It seems like a similar kind of a trajectory, doesn't it?
Yeah, so we've been kicking directors off of sets even before, a year or two ago.
Oh yeah, the directors have been kicked off sets since the silent era, believe me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think Gone with the Wind had like 3 different directors or something. I don't remember. I can't remember. I think someone told me that.
The Flying Daredevil sort of was the World War I ace movie that Howard Hughes made. He shot it at the end of the sound era, and when Soundies came in, he went back and reshot the entire movie for sound. The entire thing. So, boondoggles are nothing new.
Wow. All right, so I think we've reached our...
All right, yes. I would say this is a pass unless you're really interested in movie history. If you're a movie historian and you like interesting bubbles about movie making and things that can go spectacularly wrong, I would say, yes, watch this. But if you just want a good, well-paced actioner, I would take a pass. Would you agree?
I agree, but I'll also say this. Super Mario Brothers movie, it's ambitious in what it's trying to do, but in the end, it's still a boring movie. Like that's the one takeaway I have. It's like it has ideas, it has things it wants to do, but it's just a boring movie. And I think the only way to enjoy it is if somehow the video game, movie adaptation kind of picks up in the next decade or so.
Yeah, they're talking about doing another version of it. Actually, they're talking about doing
I think Illumination's doing it.
I can sum it up this way for you. If you were thinking about watching Super Mario Brothers the movie, watch Big Trouble in Little China instead.
Better movie.
Way better movie.
But I would just say is if the video game movie adaptation ever kicks off, if that genre ever kicks off, maybe go back into this and see like, okay, this was how it all started. But even then, I'm like, I'm never going to watch this movie again.
Yeah. I've watched it twice now. That's enough.
Yeah. All right. So with that, you said you had some projects coming up. Do you want me to just share the email?
Yeah, just share my email, and maybe we'll get back at it. If anybody's interested, we can start working on pitches and doing a production book, those kind of things, for this fall, because I'm doing my fall capstone, so senior capstone this fall.
All right, cool. All right, and you can find me on Twitter at MovieKale. You can also follow the Youth Critic, the Youth Critic Show at the Youth Critic, and you can also follow the channel that distributes this podcast at KHD Network. Thanks everyone for joining in, and thanks Justin for coming on the show, and thanks to my other guests that came on the show. Thank you so much. We will be back with you next week with Jurassic Park.
Oh, well, another 1993 movie. The retrospective continues.
Yep.
And until then, I say...
Get me the rock! Come and get it, lizard breath! Now, they must rescue the princess.
Luigi!
Alien species escaping. And make it safely back. Later, alligator. To our world.
Are you alright?
Before time runs out.
Shoot him!
Get him! Yes!
No, stop! No, not again!
this